So I ran into a couple things that I left off. I need to talk about the image editor and shader editor changes. I added a little convenience helper, getting a new image based on the size of the active image. So in the image editor, which I'm not going to really cover that one, it's the same as it was, where you go to the image option in the header and you can choose new image and it'll pick the size from the existing. So this one I'm showing you the node editor. It just gives you a generic 1K image. I've got an oddball size. So now you press that option there under node and it creates and places the texture paint node, or sorry, texture node to there. Then you have to open it up in the image editor and change it if you're going to change something about it. But setting the alpha there, now I can put that on top of the existing, and it's going to mean that I've got to have alpha as the mix factor. Color mix node goes in, and painting I like to use an emission shader while I'm working on flat stuff like this, the 2D stuff. Now in the process of painting the second layer and set it for color, which is what I should have done. I think I'm gonna have to go back and do that right when I'm working on the coloring. Yeah, change that to color, so that way I can start putting color in on top of it without having changed the actual painting underneath on the underpainting. And I don't know about you guys, but I get frustrated sometimes. I'll pick a color and I don't know what color families belong to it without going and looking on a website or something. So this is a new button that generates color families. You have to have the default palette opened up, but it'll generate palettes based on the initial pick. It'll also name your brush the color of the initial pick so that you can put them together. Now, I'm not saying your whole painting needs to be like this. I'd still suggest picking separate colors from that area when you find something that works for you, darker, lighter. Change into putting something down to, you know, pull things through. But I like to put colors down as a base to work with. It's kind of like working in oil paint, where you've got a layer underneath of a tone color. So if we tone paint it, and then we come back and start working on layering and layering and layering, then you can start getting some really cool stuff. But these relationships gives me a lot of options, whereas that's a little bit faster for me to work than even what I was doing the other day when I was making my demo. Now, effect alpha is something you got to watch out for. If you want to paint over the whole thing, you got to have it checked. If you want to paint only on the areas that have paint, which is depending on what's going on, then you can use that kind of like a mask, so that if you have an alpha area already worked out, then you can. And interesting enough, you can go in and use your erase alpha on this layer and then start painting in areas you don't want any color at. And then when you go back to do your fills and stuff with, if it's effect alpha, it's not going to affect it. Sorry, it's going to be affected by alpha. Anyway, yeah. Also, if you have a secondary pick color and you want to make a family, just know that your palettes are named after the pick color in the hex. So that, to me, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm just going to test it out, and if there's any suggestions anybody has about how it needs to be, feel free to jump in. I'll see if I can figure out how to do something better. But for the most part, this is just a poor man's palette maker, because I don't want to go onto the website. So this is the holdout shader being used on a mask object. And this is just to show how you can cut out an image, but I didn't want to do a cutout. I just want to show you the square. Then Suzanne decided to get involved. Didn't want me to forget about her, so I had to shut her off for a little bit and show you there's the transparency there. You've also got the tools in GPencil, so there's a lot of stuff in GPencil you can do as well for holdouts. Just a lot of that. It's so deep. Here I'm going to try to get set up to show you on the align to face option. This one and the face mask groups, both of those are things that are actually stuff that works from the edit mode. So in edit mode, if you select a face or a collection of faces, and then you go up there to view, and go to view to align to top, and then boom, then you're on top and you're looking flat on it. And that's really useful if you've got stencils to apply. Now, because I'm lazy and I don't really like to get out of the texture paint mode of thinking unless I have to, I set it up to where the align to face works from this button. So it does something that I think devs probably would be upset about, because it goes in and out of the edit mode in the background, saying, well, and they're like, well, you're going to make it redraw the window. That's not good. But is it? Because if you leave it in edit mode, you're making me go to edit mode anyway. Then I have to come back to texture paint mode, and I really don't want to see that and experience it. So lazy me says, no, I'll do it this way. And I had selected that, aligned to top, and did that. Now I know there's other view alignments, I get that, but this is the most useful for me because I'm using the top of his head right now. That's fine, or her head, but I could line up to a portion of the jaw or something else like that, and then be able to put a decal correctly. So anyway, I guess I'm over defending myself. Face mask groups. I made my version. Basically, all this is a container for holding what you see on the far right over there are vertex groups. But these are for me. I generated them from when you plus FMG plus, it creates groups based on the islands in the UV editor. So if you've already unwrapped your mesh and it has islands, they will be available as individual groups to choose from. And you can then also add more in. Now, see, the thing is, the controls for it are in the texture paint mode, and you're able to select, deselect, set, and unset. Now, if you go looking over there in the vertex group, the only time you can do anything about those to do that is go back into edit mode. And that's where I'm saying, for me to keep on working in texture paint and choosing things and coming back to those selections, to me this feels more like in GIMP or Photoshop, where you have a selection that you can keep coming back to in a mask. Oh, here's the good stuff. This is the new thing, and I'm calling it Trace2Curve right now. We'll see what happens. But this is a little bit of what I used to do when I was at the plant. I worked with a plastics company, and we had a lot of artwork come in that had to be turned into vector. And everybody knows that a lot of people that handle the business don't know what they're handling in paperwork wise, and they send on images from the customer, and they'll be maybe like this one, 512 by 512 pixels. Hey, you can use that to make the logo, right? Sure. So you take it in Illustrator, hit the trace function, and you get a bunch of garbage. So this is a trick I learned on how to use Blender at work. I would take the image into the viewport, set up a camera, and it was already 512 by 512, and so the next image I would add on top, I would make that 3 or 4 times as big. So you just put the 512 times 3 on each one, size it, scale it, you bring in that transparent image on top, and so now you can paint and set your stroke to stabilize. Make sure you've got your fall off set where it's got a nice edge to it, and then you can start working on trying to fill in. Now if it's not dark enough, turn off the pressure so that way it delivers pixels all the way down. Now look how smooth those pixels are. And if you haven't figured it out yet, what we're going to do is we're going to paint this out to get a good strong black and white image. Then we're going to hit that button over there called Trace2Curve. Then it's going to make a image empty so that GPencil can be called to trace it. Then the tracing result from GPencil is going to get converted to a curve. And that curve we'll be able to use in other ways. We can either increase its scale, we can use it as the basis for a brush, a stamp. We can at least render out a much better higher res image for our stenciling. We can use it as a mask or directly into a project as a, to bring it back. Now, I'm sitting there wasting a lot of time, and I finally realized, hey, go use the fill tool, the threshold in the 2D image editor, and fill it there, because it'll see like that. And that's what you want to remember. Okay, I'm going to drop some white there, and then take it on back. So I'll switch back to the regular brush, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the stabilize. I'm going to try to just fill this back in, cover up the areas that got errored out. Okay, so this probably should have not had such a point on that one, but anyway, we trace this out. We've got a lot of options. What I'm looking at doing is maybe making some things like this where I can create variations with other masks cutting it through as a stamp, or maybe even animating the curve control points so that I can set across a couple of different frames to get some brush elements. At the very least, I get a better rendering out for brushing. So I'm going to bring it back in because I want to have that render as its own. So again, I got to open it up, and then I forget where it's at. Then my eyes are bugging me out, and I can't find open until I realize I'm coming from the bottom. I got to go up, and I get it. And there we go. Now I got to bring that in as a camera and plane. It's still at 512, guys. So that nice sharp edge is only 512 by 512. It's like butter. So I select it. Now we're going to hit that button. Boom. Now I've got to drag the canvas back into the other view so I can save it. But I'm going to go ahead and turn off the rest of that collection. And then with the curve selected, I'm going to go into isolate mode. Okay, barely see it though, it's blue on blue. So got to change it to fill both because I've set it for 2D, and then I've got to go into edit mode. Alt C will turn it cyclic. And this one's really good, but there was a couple before on the tests where I'd get overlapping curve points, and then it wouldn't fill until I went back in and snapped them to the point they were attached to. So there you go. This is where we're at right now, and this is an experimental feature, kind of like work in progress. But this is a step in the right direction, I hope. Okay, guys, and any comments you've got, throw them on my way, and I'll see what I can do with them. But just remember, ART is FUN. Get out there and do some blending.